Welcome to another episode of the Agency Action Show starring Toby and Kurt. Kurt, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing really good. You sounded like Don Pardo there when you first started out. You
That's
got me
what I go
amused.
for.
Got me amused right there. Hey, we were talking before we hit record here for this, and before we actually hit subjects, I just want to thank people for really gracious comments and support and stuff. That's awesome. Don't forget, like, share, follow, of course, all that. But getting the comments in and getting feedback from Matt has been a really good, positive experience for Toby and I. So we appreciate that. But as far as content today, Toby, running an agency, running a business, and being part of like the community, like where do you feel like as especially an agency owner, where do you fall in your responsibility, beyond making revenue for yourself? What do we owe to the community?
I believe that we owe a lot, like in not only our WordPress community, but beyond that, our church, our neighborhood, our city, our state, our federal community. I feel like I owe a lot to all those layers. But professionally, as someone who runs a WordPress agency, I've gone through iterations where 10 years ago, I was paying my developers to contribute to WordPress core, for example.
Wow.
I was part of a couple Buddy Press releases myself. I planned a Buddy Camp. I planned a couple of WordCamps here in Minneapolis a decade or more ago. So I've invested a lot of time and money and energy in just like trying to be a good community member. And I think that's part of the question that we all have to answer is why are we contributing? And I just feel like for my part, I just feel an innate responsibility to contribute something back in all the things I do. And particularly, we're talking about WordPress agencies here. So yeah, like I attend meetups locally, for example. I go to the no code meetup partially because it's a lot of fun, but also it's important that people show up to these things so the people that are engaged see heads in front of them as they're talking. And
Yeah.
I feel a responsibility to be part of that audience.
It's so interesting because you went right into like, the 5 for the future concepts and, that are in my head. I did a talk at the Chamber of Commerce last Friday about the benefits of WordPress for business. And we invited a bunch of business owners in for this kind of like a workshop. I had a workbook and a presentation, all the stuff. And there was a business owner there, and I was explaining the ownership of WordPress and that it's open source and the benefits of open source. And he leaned back in his chair and folded his arms and he said, "Yeah, but what's in it for you?" And I was like, "What do you mean what's in it for me?" And he's like, "Well, why would all these people help? How does this grow? Why would people get involved? That's stupid." Like, he's like, "Who's getting paid?" I go, "Well, I know that they raised something like $750 million as an organization." And he's like, "Yeah, but how do they pay you?" And I'm like, "Well, they don't." And he's like, "So you do that WordPress meetup thing every month and no one pays you?" And I'm like, "No, but I don't feel slighted because of it either." Right? It's such a strange dynamic because let's just face facts. I mean, I don't see a Squarespace meetup in my town.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so what all of this community stuff, I didn't even know about the community for like the first dozen years that my agency existed. But once I did know about the community, I was pulled in. I couldn't like not participate.
Yeah. I also think as an agency owner, part of my job is to give opportunities to people who on my team who want to learn. So it could be younger developers, it could be older developers. So I always look for ways to push my developers just a little bit. Like today, we're launching a new site and we have a developer who had never done that. And I said, "You're going to lead the launch." And he pinged me right before this call. He's like, "Okay." And we had it all planned out. And he's like, "What do I need to tell them about the IP address? Do I need to give them the name servers or whatever?" And these are like, for someone who's done it 100 times, you don't even think about it. But I feel we have a responsibility to lift people up as agency owners, the people that in our employ. regardless of where they're at, or, remote contract, or their status.
Yeah. It is uh, when people from outside the circle second guess you with what seems like, common sense, wisdom, or questions, sometimes it can take you back a little bit. Like what, like why would I, like when it came out that Matt Mullenweg, owned .org and was like throwing people out of it, that was hard to stomach, because it was like I saw a lot of people get banned out of the .org that I knew were heavy contributors. And I was like, ooh, that's not a good look. But at the end of the day, I have been able to grow a thriving agency using software I haven't had to pay for. And I feel like there is a responsibility that goes with that. Like, if I didn't have to write the check or swipe my credit card and I've been able to use that tool to grow a thriving business, then I should pay it forward somehow. And to your point, I personally believe we have to invest in the younger people. So, we've got that apprenticeship program we're working on in the background to launch this year. But it's because when I talk to young people don't even know about WordPress. And so when I get like IT interested kids in a room and I go, what platform do you build on? And they start naming all these weird things. I go, well, how many of you have heard of WordPress? And nobody has. I'm like, all right, obviously the marketing for WordPress, it must suck. So we have to market it, because as we get older and age out, somebody's got to come up and fill the spot.
Yeah. I also think along those lines that something that's worth saying in our vertical technology, the vertical, but WordPress too, ageism is real in our industry. Like ageism, really, it's old people are getting forced out just because they're old, uh, and
Yeah.
I always try to keep that in mind too. Um, as I'm looking to hire, I try to just, like NFL has what's called the Rooney Rule. The idea is you got to interview, I think it's like 3 minority candidates for any job opening or something, and it's proven statistically to, since they implemented that rule, it appears to have led to some hiring. And I've kind of like been like, okay, what if I brought in a couple old people into my hiring process each time, or at least tried to. um I feel a responsibility to that, because I'm not getting younger too, and so it's partially self-serving, but also um I think it's the right thing to do.
Well, I think what you just mentioned is going to bridge us to another topic. And this is something I personally struggle with. You and I have different models, and we've talked about that openly on the show before. I use a lot of contractors and you use a lot of staff. I really struggle because let's say I got a client project and, could I do it? Sure. Would it be better if I delegated the task? Absolutely. Right. So then I go, okay, I'm going to delegate this. And then I'll farm it out to people in my network and I'll say, hey, we've got this task. I need to get this done. It has to be done by such and such a date. What rate do you need for me to cover you on this? And if they're in America, man, these quotes come back at 22, 26, $2,800. It's going to take me 3 weeks, and it's like, hmm. And then I pop over to I have a short list of people outside the country, and I hit people up and they go, "Oh, no problem, Mr. Kurt. Cost $85 and have it done in 3 days." And that is such a struggle, because it's like I want to keep the American dollars in America. I want to hire local. I want to be a good steward, and a good community player, but it's really, really difficult to pay somebody 20, 30 times as much and wait 10 times as long to get the same product.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm struggling with this question right now and I don't have an answer, but specifically the question that you just raised, like, um, right now, today, Minneapolis's economy is reeling because of, as a result of recent uh, politics. Um, and we've been contributing in all sorts of ways, and our community is really stepping up to contribute financially to people and uh, putting their bodies on the line. And I'm like, what could I do? Even if it hurts my business, it might change somebody's life here locally if I hire them for a job, especially in our field because it's remote. And a lot of the people right now who are being targeted in Minneapolis are afraid to leave their door, afraid to go outside. And so I'm thinking, like, if maybe I can have a out whatever that cost is to my business, maybe the impact for that person's life will be exponentially greater than it would be in normal times.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the ageism thing. I have had in the last 3 months 2 it's just worked out that they're women. 2 women approach me and say, "Do you ever hire locally? Because my husband is being forced to retire and he needs something to do. Like he's looking for something to do. Would you be willing to bring him onto your team?" And what's really interesting about that, Toby, is in a lot of these cases, they've been, civic employees for 30 years. They've got a pension. They've got union, savings, 401ks. They don't need $25, $30, $80, $60 an hour. They're more like, hey man, let me hang out and drink some coffee with you. Pay me 15 bucks an hour and I'll do whatever you teach me to do. Right. And in those situations, maybe that would be some really good community interaction and not break the bank.
Yeah, you know what's interesting too about that specifically? A lot of people who are disabled or elderly have a max that they can earn to stay
Yeah.
on Social Security, and so they'll be like, "No, just pay me 10 bucks an hour or whatever the minimum wage is." And they might be experts.
Oh, you just hit me right in the feels. We have a coffee shop here in town attached to an art studio. It's called Clayworks, and every piece of art made in that building is made by, a special needs person. They're an adult special needs person, and it gives them an artistic outlet. And I have this art in my house. I got a bee over here. I got a truck over here. Like I just love this shop. And we can meet at that facility for free. They give us meeting rooms for free and it's really really cool because it's another outlet where yeah, I can hire people that are very capable. It's just a lot of businesses, they hesitate to hire someone that has extra needs, but it's like, man, if I could show you how to schedule social media posts and you could do that for one of our clients for a month, for 3 months, Bob's your uncle, man.
Yeah. I think another way that right now I'm contributing locally, like, is spending money at local businesses. And let's say I need a sign or something. In my case, the reality is that we have my local coffee shop was targeted by federal agents, wearing masks and having machine guns, and the owner is a one person shop. He doesn't have any employees, and he was scared to death. And so what I've been doing is I've just been working from there and buying coffee, and he sells burritos that are amazing. And I'm like, again, it costs me a little more because I'm already paying for co-working space, but I'm like, I think he probably appreciates having friendly bodies in there, because he's still showing up. And I think, like, if I were to translate that for whatever your community is, it could be your church or whatever, like there's probably impacts you can have that you'd probably really enjoy doing, not you, Kurt, but everybody out there, that could really impact another life. And you probably have to be a little thoughtful. Like for me, it's going specifically to this coffee shop when there are other coffee shops I could go to, or I could go to co-working. Um,
Well, it is unique because I think the whole vibe that we set up here in the first few minutes of this show is like, if you're an agency and you found the show and you haven't really found the community yet, I really want to encourage you to find the community. Find a WordPress meetup, find a no code meetup, find what do they call that? What's that cloud thing that they do? Cloud Fest. Go to press conf. I mean, get involved, go to something, and then find something that just kind of like tickles your heartstrings a little bit, right? Because it's at the end of the day, if you're doing something that you're not really behind, well, then it's kind of hard to participate at a high level. But if you find something that tugs at your heartstrings, like for me with these special needs artist types, I'm not an artist, and so it's like I think what they do is really really cool. But it's like find that thing and then do it. I really think if you are a business in a local region, it's more than just collecting revenue out of that region and paying your taxes. I think you really need to be involved at some level in paying it forward to some group within the region.
yeah, true. And I'd like to just shift our focus a little bit to our clients and what responsibility we might have to them. For example, your clients come to you presumably because they're putting trust in you as an expert. But let's unpack what that actually means, because sometimes they come to us with bad ideas that we think are bad. I'm not saying they're objectively bad, but I might hear it and go, "Whoa, I've seen this 100 times. This is not good." And so, what responsibility do you, Kurt, have to share your opinions or your experiences in a case where you feel like maybe the idea is going down a bad path for them?
Well, we talked about this before the show, and this is one of my passion points too. I realized when I started my agency in New Mexico and I was doing very cheap website builds to get started, I realized that all these people were coming in and like a mom and pop company making salsa, right? A mom and pop company making chocolate covered apples, a mom and pop company making something, coffee beans. They weren't really asking me about building a website. What they were really asking me was building a business. They were asking me like processes. And while it reflected on the content of the website, it still came down to I was giving an awful lot of business consulting away for free in the hopes that I would sell this website, right? Now fast forward a decade and I had made made the recognition that was what was happening. And when I talked to other agency owners in the space, I realized they weren't running their business like that. They were more like, oh, you want a website? Great. Do you want a red background, a green background, a cream background, a black background? Do you like light sites, dark sites? Do you like bold fonts? Do you like light fonts? Do you like sans serif? Do you like serif? And I wasn't running my business that way. I was sitting with people and doing like real needs assessments like, how is your business formulated? How many people work for you? How do you make and produce your widgets? How do you actively sell them now? How do you train your people? And because I was offering that consultation at that level, I came to realize that's what my agency sells. I've got this huge background in the corporate space and process development and all these things. I can't make a website without considering all the background needs. Like I can't just take an order and make a website. For me personally, I have to be involved in like the whole part of it to feel like like what I sold has value. And so for us, we sell the consultation. And to be honest with you, Toby, sometimes a website's not even the end product. Sometimes the consultation comes out and goes, well, you don't even need a website. Like you have a website, or, you're doing this instead. You're not at that level yet where you need this yet. But we sell the consultation, and the website is like the effect of the consultation for us.
Yeah.
So
One
if their
thing
idea sucks, we have to tell them.
I think one thing that my agency has done historically is to be very reactive in one sense. So we do a lot of consultation up front, but then once the project is defined, we're very reactive. And especially once it's launched, we've been reactive. And I'm trying to change that at our agency to be proactive. And I think we can do a lot of good that way. I think our clients really want that. A lot of our clients are marketing people, for example, or business owners who just aren't thinking about new website ideas that could
Yeah.
push leads. And so we're right now building a process internally to pitch ideas to clients. And it's a sales process. So, you need to, it's like you have to be very thoughtful, because you need to pitch something at the right time where they're ready to listen to it. There's this story that James Horner told. He did the soundtrack for the Titanic movie with the big one. And he had recorded Celine Dion's "Where You Dear Far, Wherever You Are," that song. He recorded that, let's say it was in January, and he waited months and months to pitch it to James Cameron, the director and producer, because he wanted to hit he knew James Cameron would be like, no, horrible idea. So he was just waiting for the perfect moment. He had already had it in the bank. And the song, of course, ended up making $1 billion for James Cameron. But this is what I'm trying to figure out with proactively pitching ideas. And we're building, it's the process is messy. It's going to include AI. And we've already pitched one idea that landed really well. And so I throw that out there as it's kind of an extension. I think a lot of us agency owners, especially smaller agencies, kind of stop and get reactive once the project is done.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I have a client, um, and I love her website. Building her website was a pain in the rear end. It really was. She was a pain. Everyone on the project was just like argumentative and questioning things, and it was just anxiety, right? And I had to recognize like they're putting a lot of risk into this, and they have a lot of anxiety. And so I ended up having to be like I had to bring out my John Maxwell skills, right, and calm them down and lead them through the process. And we got the site launched, um, and then like what happens with e-learning sites, man, there was kind of like crickets. They thought, they were gonna have to beat customers off with a stick. And what they had failed to realize in their marketing plan was that you don't just build it and announce it. You have to build it and announce it and promote it and get on podcasts and get on shows and get, and really you have to live the dream, right? You have to live the dream, not just kind of watch the dream from a distance. And now it's a year later, and she has hired some other marketing people and CRM people, and she's tried some things and spent some money, and it hasn't worked. And then we as an agency just said, listen, we're a full service agency. I know you've tried to save some budget and work with some of these, Fiverr type people, which is fine, but we know your product. We know your pain cases that you're trying to sell against, right? So why don't you just let us do some stuff for you? Change your headings. You haven't changed your headings in a year and a half. So let's change some headings. Let's change some images. Let's do some social media and really go after your students' pain points and sell the solution to the pain points. And let's focus on the benefit to the student. It's been, I don't know, it's been 2.5, 3 weeks, and they've had like 7 signups in the last week,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big deal because when you
Yeah.
launch an e-commerce, e-learning website, if you get to 10 paying customers, that's like a giant milestone.
One paying customer's the first giant milestone.
One.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's that, to your point, it's that proactive versus reactive. If I would have just sat back and let them just, I mean, they were $1,000 here, $1,500 there, trying all these different things to save a buck. And I was like, look, I know our rate seems high to you, but you have to measure it against the value and the results that you're going to get for your investment. And right now you're losing. So let's try something and see if we can't get you to win.
Yeah. I think part of that, especially in the selling, but also like I'm going to get to the good part of this. There's like an emotional intelligence that is really helpful in selling, but also like part of that is I feel like it's our responsibility to the extent of our talents and skills allow to provide emotional stability and emotionally intelligent reactions. And so a client might come to me with a very scary problem for them. Let's say this is a very real thing that came to me recently. Our PayPal transactions with Restrict Content Pro, I think is a plugin. The PayPal transactions, we're getting tons of fraud on it. And so they're freaking out. This is their whole livelihood.
Yeah.
And it's kind of my job. Like I'm pretty confident we can solve it, but my part of my responsibility to this client is to communicate our competency, which helps in sales, but it also puts them at ease. And that's what I want them to feel confident hiring us too. And hopefully after they hand that to me, after that conversation, they can go and drink their tea. Like that's kind of what I'm aiming for. And then
Yeah.
we'll deliver the solution.
Well, it's interesting. So we've talked about what do we do when the customer makes a horrific decision, like whether it's related to the website or just business in general. At what point do you gingerly say, "Hey, I've seen this before, and in my opinion, the results here might not be so great." I think that's important to be able to say that to a client.
Yeah. And it's like, well, I think client relationships are no different than any other in this respect, that you need to meet them where they're at. So if you come in with, you need to, whatever the no is, whatever the, hey, stop, this is stupid, you can't just lead with that if they're not ready for that. And
Yeah.
what I try to do, if I see that freight train coming, I just try to take the first step to slow it down And then depending on that reception, I'll take the next step. And so hypothetically, it could be somebody coming to me saying, hey, I want to have this idea. And they describe it and it's the next Facebook. And I'm like, I might say, oh, let's tell me more about this idea. How do you expect to earn revenue from this? And da 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 da. And maybe at some point I just pepper in there, oh, this seems like $100,000 project, da 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 da. And I try to help them meet them where they're at and give them the information that communicates my experiences and opinions as well. I mean, I think that's one of our jobs as consultants is to always be communicating our opinions where we have them.
Yeah. And it's weird because I don't want to poo poo people. Like, we had a client that she actually broke my heart. She was a fairly successful realtor, and she had lost a ton of weight, and she had come up with this, membership e-learning platform about weight loss and these things. And then she was personable, she was passionate, she had the results to show for it. I mean, you tick the boxes, and she had everything that would say success. And she wanted to build the website herself. And that's where she made the mistake. And so we said, okay, well, look, we'll give you the platform, we'll give you the tools, we'll give you an orientation on how the tools work. And if you want me to review the website when you're done, let me know. Right. Well, she didn't get a lot of success out of it right away. And then she finally said, can you take a look at this? And I was like, yeah, I would change this, 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 this. Right. Well, can I just hire you to do that then? I said, sure. So we did it, and everything was set up. Everything was ready to launch and like be awesome. And she just had like imposter syndrome kind of really flare up. And she just one day said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Let's just take it down. And I tried, like, I was like, you are there, you've done the work. You've got the product, you've got the content, you've got the results, you've got the one-on-one connect. She already had like 25 or 30 members as free members in the website. And so she already kind of had an audience to kind of warm and sell to. And she was just like, no, you know what? I don't want to sell this story. I don't want to. I just maybe I got excited at the wrong time and
Mm-hmm.
then pulled the plug. And that was a heartbreak. But it's like, to your point, I can't force them to keep their site active, right? But I want to encourage, like, the ones that seem like they could be winners, man, I want to encourage them with everything I got.
Yeah. Part of the problem for me is that it's hard to know what's going to be a winner and a loser. There's
Oh,
certainly
yeah.
ones that I thought were going to be losers that became huge winners and vice versa.
Yeah. Like the neurogum people on Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, nah, I'll pass on that. Well, that was a bad one. Pass on.
Exactly. And that's a good point because there are people who, let's go to pro sports. There's more money and talent observation in pro sports than anywhere else. And they fail almost every time. Like Tom Brady, greatest quarterback ever, 6th round pick. By the way, Joe Montana, I don't think he was a 1st round pick either. I could be wrong, but and
Oh,
that's where these are guys with the most money, most resources. They can't even figure out what's going to work and not.
well, let's kind of wrap up this responsibility to clients topic. And let's talk about agency owners that might be listening to us, and they're not plugged into the community yet. They're not looking at themselves as consultants to clients. They're looking at themselves as like, I'm a web guy, I build websites. Toby, what from your lips, man, what do you think is a potential issue for someone that strictly focuses on the tasks, commoditizes building websites, and doesn't get involved in the community or the client's relationship like that?
I want to be real that there are people who probably don't want the client relationships or the consulting arrangement. And that's fine. There are lots of businesses that are very successful where the owner never talks to a client, and maybe I'm thinking you could own a WordPress support portal where you have never spoken with a single client and you have let's just say 1,000 people paying you monthly for support.
That's a good idea. We're WP support portal. I wonder if that's available.
Let's find out. Trademark, copyright. But let's say you wanted to be more of a consultant. Let's say you're kind of stuck in a rut of maybe you're a Fiverr person or you're on Upwork and people are just like, no, just change the color, just build me a website, and that's been your job to date. There are a lot of people hiring you on those platforms who probably would appreciate a little more consulting. And I would just say, try it. Try it once, see how it goes. And I think if you try it, you'll probably get good feedback from the person who's paying you. And I don't mean sell it. I mean just, hey, they hired me to change the color. While you were in there, you noticed that the logo could be changed, could be moved to the right 3 pixels. Let
Yeah.
them know that while as part of that communication. And by the way, then you can upsell that work. They don't need to ask for the work for you to present even small additional things. And I think that's a great way to start down the consulting path. While you're being paid for other stuff, look for opportunities for other things you can fix and get paid for.
And it's one of the headlines in our notes, but I think it's worth saying before we wrap up the show today, and that is your clients trust you more than you realize. And so you have to be cognizant of that. Like, so in my own experience, I had been operating from a position of trust and leadership with clients long before I recognized it. And to be honest, I underpaid myself for years because I'd given away all this free consulting and information. So then I had to realize, oh, I could double my rates. And this is not from a selfish perspective. This is just being realistic. I could double my rates, acknowledge that I'm consulting these folks, and still offer them great services. They're happy. The level of trust actually increases, and my revenue and margins went up.
By the way, we've done a number of shows about how to increase your revenue as a WordPress agency owner.
Yeah, when do we get our check?
So check out WP Minute Plus archives on the WPMinute.com for more info. Because I was like, should I go deep on how to earn more revenue? We'll save. We already have a lot. We might do another one in the future. Maybe we could end with a little bit about internal communication and maybe not go super deep, but how you're communicating to your spouse about your work. That's her reality. That's all she knows about your work is how you communicate it to her. So, or him, and that's when I think of internal communication, that's one aspect. The other is if you're working with contractors. I think in our industry, I don't think it's universal by any means, but there's a tendency to really discount work done by 1099 contractors or remote employee, not remote, but let's say contractors who are doing not full-time work,
Yeah.
or not full-time agreements. There's a tendency in our field to kind of treat them worse than you would a full-time employee. And one thing I try to do is recognize that as I'm going through my daily life and as an agency owner, and try to treat everyone with the golden rule, treat them how I would want to be treated, but also look for opportunities for them. I always try to leave, doesn't matter if I work with them for an hour or for 1,000 hours, I try to leave them better off than when they came in. And I
Yeah.
don't mean doing anything expensive or out of the ordinary, but just you can ask questions. You can say, how are you doing today? You could provide opportunities. So I provide all my contractors opportunities for education. I also give, by the way, every contractor that works with me in any regular capacity. So whether it's 2 hours a week, 4 hours a week, 20 hours a week, they get vacation time. They get paid vacation with the Mighty Mo. And so if you're working 2 hours a week with the Mighty Mo, you get paid vacation.
Kind of sweet.
It's odd. And I don't know why it's odd, but that's the reality. I don't think it should be odd. And that's kind of why I'm doing it.
So I don't know if Lifter's going to get mad if I say it out loud or not, but it's a really cool thing that they do. I work with Lifter LMS directly as a contractor, and a certain percentage or portion I don't know how they figure it out. They figure it out somehow. And a portion of money gets put into a held account for each person, and that money is for technical equipment. So, like, when I wanna upgrade my laptop, when I wanna get a new tablet, when I wanna buy a new mouse, when I wanna I just get in touch with Chris, and Chris goes, "Oh, yeah, you got $300 in this account, go order it, send me the receipt, and I'll put the reimbursement on your next check." And it's like, man, that is, like, such a nice perk, because contractors and freelancers, you're always like, "Man, when do I upgrade?" Right? I've been carrying this MacBook for 6 years. So it's nice to know that there's always funds somewhere to help with something. I don't always have to just look at my checking account.
One thing I love about that is that they kind of that sort of approach recognizes that you're always teaching. And so you're a business owner or you're a contractor, but you're always teaching up and down. And I think part of, to circle it back to where we started, your responsibility to the community, recognize that you're always teaching, whether you want to or not. People are learning about you from you. You might not even know the impact you're having. Let's say you just go out there and you say something mean that maybe you don't even think is that mean. Someone might interpret it as very mean. And what does that say about you? And how does that impact how they view the world, even beyond, even if you don't know them? So I always try to approach the world in that way. I'm always trying to be curious about my impact and about the things I'm saying and doing.
Yeah, there's always that saying, but the world's a better place with you in it, right? And I think the second part of that is, wouldn't it be cool if other people recognize that too? Right? Don't be a burden on people if you don't have to be a burden on people. Sweet. Dude, lots of pearls of wisdom in this episode. How can people reach you?
You can find me on themightymo.com. You could find me on LinkedIn, Toby Cryns. You can DM me there if you'd like. Kurt, how can we find you?
I am also on LinkedIn. I'm the only Kurt Von Ahnen on LinkedIn, so it makes it easy. And then Mañana No Mas is our agency name, and it's on all the socials and mañananomas.com. Folks, this has been the Agency Action Show. We are so thrilled that you're here. Again, like, share, follow, and send in your comments. And if you have questions that you think Toby and I could help answer for you, we'd love for you to submit some questions to us. Have a great day.